Всем привет! What is borscht? Well, if you live outside of the Eastern Bloc, you might have some vague concept of what it is. It's red. It's made with beets. Probably tastes like poverty and communism. But borscht is so much more than just the reason why your Eastern European neighbors smell like boiled vegetables.
I assume that smell is cabbage and not just you two.
It is a deep, rich, and beautiful soup. But it takes a lot of patience and a soft touch, because the beet is a vegetable that demands to be romanced. But with enough time, love, and attention, and well, moderate sobriety, you can make an truly incredible soup. But what is borscht? What is real borscht? Well, there is no real borscht, because borscht can be whatever you want it to be. It can be light and healthy. It can be dense and filling. It can be sweet and creamy. It can be meaty and earthy. You can even make a vegan borscht if you're like a masochist. So, as long as you invest the time, love, and attention needed to make this soup, you can make something damn near magical just using winter vegetables. So with that being said, let's throw on our apron, grab our vegetable peeler, and take a shot for the motherland, because we're making borscht. To make this Ukrainian classic, you need beets, pork, carrots, cabbage, beans, potatoes, onion, and a pile of bones and veggie scraps. While most modern borscht is made in a single pot over the course of a couple hours, we're going to take the long way by making a stock first. So get a large assortment of bones from your local butcher, or a pet cemetery. And if you want a meatier borscht, pork ribs are typically the way to go. Some people prefer borscht without beans, and if you're anti-beans, no worries, you do you. Just replace the beans for an equal amount of potatoes. Step 1 of the stock is to roast them bones, baby. So arrange the bones onto a tray. I've got beef ribs, pork ribs, oxtail, and then a larger beef joint. I'm not sure which.
If I had to call it anything, I would say it's his knee.
Roasting the bones allows you to add a depth of flavor to the stock through the Maillard reaction, and also to render off some of the fat to keep the soup from being, well, fatty. Once you have your bones laid out, send them to the gulag, preheated. 10 лет, без права переписки. Now we can gently and carefully clean our root vegetables. While the bones are roasting in their penal colony, clean the potatoes, beets, and carrots if they are straight from the rich soil of the motherland. Peel the carrots, but save the scraps for the stock. You can put almost anything into stock. Garlic, turnips, parsnip, bay leaf, dried mushrooms, celery, peppercorn, a lonesome dried chili. Your long-abandoned dream of becoming a paleontologist. I even add a nub of ginger to my borscht stock, even though some people say it isn't necessary.
But I do it anyway because it's sterile and I like the taste.
With about 20 minutes left, you'll add some halved onions and a bulb of garlic to brown with the bones. Once you have the bones out, you can save some of the rendered fat from the pan and use it to saute the onions later. It'll help reincorporate some meaty goodness back into the soup. You can also take the stems and hardy parts of any herbs you like, add them together, and tie them with non-wax string to make a bouquet garni to add to the stock. Now we're going to add all of our ingredients into a pot of cold water and bring to a strong simmer. While doing this, sieve off any scum that comes to the surface. Once the stock comes up to a boil, reduce the temp to maintain a slow simmer, and then cook until done. This usually takes about 4 or 5 hours. Turn off the heat, and then cover when finished. I generally let sit overnight, and then filter it the next morning. Alright, now off to bed, comrades, with dreams of borscht dancing in your head.
The next day.
Well, good morning, sunshine. Wyspalsia. You can now remove the fat that had solidified at the top of the stock, or keep it. It's your choice. When you're filtering your stock, make sure that you put your soaked beans on the stove and boil the absolute shit out of them. I mean, just go nuts. It's really hard to overcook them. Separate the bones from the vegetables, just so you can pull off any usable meat and save it later to add it back into the soup. Anything else that's left, you can toss or add to your compost heap. Here you can see there's not too much meat that came off the bones. I probably should have used a couple more pork ribs, but still good. Now we can start on the dough for the yeast rolls. This step is optional, so if baking scares you, feel free to skip it, but it's well worth the effort. Ukrainians call them pampushki, which apparently in Russian can be slang for a fat girl, so, either way, I'm a huge fan. You want to take 500 grams of unbleached flour and 300 grams of warm water. Warm like a baby's bottle, not Miami hotel jacuzzi water warm. If it's too hot, you'll kill the yeast. In a small container, add about 5 grams of yeast to water with a bit of honey so that the yeast can bloom. It should look like a well-poured beer once the yeast comes to life. Oh, now that's some heady yeast. Add that to your flour, along with the rest of your water. Now you want to mix the flour and water until a shaggy dough forms. Now, you add 1 beaten egg and a glug of olive oil, and then mix again. Now you want to mix and fold the dough until it comes together. During this process, add a tablespoon of salt to the dough as you mix. You can pull the dough from the bottom and fold it over the top. Rotate and repeat. Do this until a rough ball of sticky dough forms, or, you lose the will to live. The dough should still be sticky to the touch. Now cover with a towel and set aside to rise. At this point, you should start bringing your stock back to a simmer, and your beans should be boiling or close to it. Now we can start prepping veggies for the borscht. Thickly grate carrots, while ignoring that pile of sliced carrots I mistakenly put to the mandolin. That was totally intentional and on purpose. Put the grated carrots in a bowl and set aside. Chop an onion to your liking. I prefer cutting them into sizable pieces since they'll cook down anyway. Sauté in a hot pan with any fat saved from roasting. Once your onions have caramelized a bit, I like to make a small mound in the center of the pan and then put caramelized a bit. This allows you to mound the carrots a bit before you cook. Next, we're going to peel and slice the beets. You might want to wear gloves, but I personally enjoy dyed red fingertips. I recommend using a mandolin for shredding the beets, but please use this thing carefully. It scares the shit out of me sometimes. Plus, adding finger meat to your borscht is definitely an unwanted deviation from traditional recipes. You can just grate the beets, like we did the carrots, but I think that borscht keeps its color and flavor for longer and stands up to repeated reheating if you cut a thicker beet. But then again, you do you. But at this point, you should be careful. The incredible smell of borscht and beets has been known to attract bears.
Fact. Bears eat beets. Oh. Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
Once you've mixed and sautéed your carrots and onions, add the better part of a can of crushed tomatoes. Sautéed, you're going to like to add a couple ladlefuls of stock, just to make sure things don't dry out. Now we're going to add beets to the mirepoix. Mix and cover. Reduce the heat and let cook until they just start to soften. This doesn't take long at all. Potatoes, cube them. I don't need to tell you everything. Add these to your stock and let them cook on their lonesome. At this point, we're ready to combine the mirepoix of beets, carrots, and onions to the simmering stock. You want to check the beans to see if they're firm yet cooked through, and if so, add them straight to the pot.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
If you want, you can add a couple ladlefuls of the bean water to your stock. Well, I guess it's soup now. This adds a bit more of an earthy flavor to your borscht. Oh dear sweet lord, that's beautiful. Here's where the flavors really combine, and it starts to resemble borscht. Start tasting for flavor, and adding salt and pepper. Make sure that you're cooking on a low temp, because overcooking can cause a loss of color and unwanted textures. Now we cut, core, and shred our cabbage. Some add a little, but I prefer a bit more. I always add the cabbage near the end because it's the most delicate of the vegetables, and they cook the fastest. For the final simmer, I also like to throw in a couple of bay leaves as well. Mix and let cook uncovered. While the cabbage is cooking, we can prep our dough that is now roughly doubled in size. Knock down the dough and gently shape it on a floured work surface. Avoid being too rough with the dough or cutting it needlessly. Shape it into a fat, gluten-based snake and twist off a fistful of dough at a time and then roll them in on themselves and make cute little rolls. Place the rolls into a well-oiled pan. The preferred baking tin is typically circular, and this allows you to more effectively crowd the rolls so that they rise in unison together. But a rectangular pan will do the trick too, I guess. Oops. Now that they're rolled out, cover and let rise for the final proof. This usually takes about 20 minutes. Now you want to beat 2 egg yolks and brush them onto the rolls. After the egg wash, I like to sprinkle on a bit of coarse salt, but that's just because I'm so damned extra. Now you want to throw them in the oven on about 220 Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. If the tops brown too quickly, throw on a sheet of aluminum foil to keep them from burning. While they're baking, go ahead and cut up a mountain of green herbs, dill and parsley mostly. And then you want to check your borscht for seasoning. Add salt as needed, and make sure that the veggies are done. If you aren't making garlic rolls, now's the perfect time to add a couple of crushed cloves of garlic to your soup. Once you've added the herbs to the soup and mixed, you're basically finished. Just lower the heat to the lowest setting to keep it warm. Now it's time to pat yourself on the back, because the borscht is done, and you've survived. For the topping on the garlic rolls, we need, well, garlic. Crush what you think is way too much garlic, trust me, it's not, and mix with some fresh green herbs. Chief among them will be dill, as per Slavic traditions. Then add a big old glug of olive oil and thoroughly mix. Once your rolls are cooked, you want to pull them from the oven and to immediately brush them down with the garlic oil herb mixture. It smells divine. Serve your borscht with a sprinkle of dill and a hearty dollop of sour cream. The rolls are slightly crispy on the outside, but soft and buttery inside, and they soak up your borschte goodness like an edible spoon. A shot of horseradish vodka is kind of the perfect complement to borscht, and borscht will continue to mature after it's cooked, peaking in flavor about 2 days after you finish it, so don't worry about making too much, it only gets better with age. So you've managed to feed yourself, feed your family, feed your friends, and you did it by turning cheap, readily available ingredients into something memorable. So let me know what other dishes you guys want to make. Or if you just want to complain about how I deviated from your grandmother's one true recipe, let me know in the comments below. Till next time, eat well, friends.
Happy end!